Hi, my name is Olia Hercules. I'm a British-Ukrainian chef and author. Originally, I'm from the south of Ukraine, Kherson region, Kakhovka, temporarily occupied. The significance of nature in Ukraine, and it's part of our culture. I feel like in most pre-industrialized societies, I suppose, there has been less of a distinction or separation between humans and nature. You know, nature is this kind of like separate entity which is almost alien to us. I feel like it's a very modern construct. But in Ukraine, nature, whether it's something that you grow in your garden or your surroundings, the forests or the rivers or whatever else that surrounds you in your local area, it's always been so significant, it almost makes part of our DNA. It's everywhere. It's in our embroideries. We paint beautiful things inside the houses, on the walls, plants and animals and insects, etc. So it's a huge part of Ukrainian culture. And of course, in terms of food growing and seasonality, Ukrainian food culture, I feel, still to this day has been able to preserve some of those beautiful ideas on how to eat in the best way. So eating vegetables when they're in season. You will never have a tomato salad that's better when tomatoes are in peak season. You know, they will be the sweetest, the most gorgeous at that time. We preserve things for winter. So come autumn, we collect the glut from our gardens, you know, everything that the soil and the sun have given us, and we put them into jars and we ferment them or pickle them or preserve them in many other ways. So to us, things like seasonality, no waste kind of philosophy, they're not trend words. They're just, again, something that we grew up with. What did the illegal invasion do to nature in Ukraine? So much. It's, I don't know where to begin, really. I'll speak a little bit more in detail about something that I know from my family's personal experience, my friends' personal experience. But in general, from what I understand, there are millions of trees that have been burned or destroyed. There's life in the sea is suffering. So dolphins have been beached and disoriented by Russian sonar and explosions for 3 years now. It's really scary to think about the impact that it's had on the animals in the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. There's chemicals that are being leached into our rivers in the Kharkiv area. Huge problems there. The threat that's constantly coming from Russia's occupation of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant is another one. And of course, the disaster that's closest to me, because it happened in my hometown, is when the Kakhovka dam was blown up by the Russians. So my hometown of Kakhovka is only 70 kilometers away from the Crimean border. Through the Crimean Canal, the fresh water would be pumped into Crimea, essentially. And we didn't really feel safe. We were convinced that the Russians were coming for us sooner rather than later. Then you kind of stop thinking like that, and then of course it happened. So as soon as it happened, the hydroelectric station near the kind of on the Kakhovka dam was taken, occupied by the Russians. You know, they put their flag up there, but we just could not believe that they would blow up the dam. I mean, the damage would be so colossal. But of course, then I started researching the actual dam, how it was built. So Stalin had this policy, like a whole philosophy in the 1950s, early 1950s, to start the great transformation of nature. So Stalin started drying out natural kind of marshes, wetlands in northern Ukraine, in the Polisia area, and in the south, where it was super arid, naturally, like in the area where I grew up, in Kherson region, he wanted to create a big sea. As the result of building this dam, they flooded hundreds of villages. So thousands of people lost their homes, their livelihoods, their gardens. They were put into these Soviet apartment blocks, away from the soil, away from their natural environment. So the dam, actually, the building of the dam started with this natural disaster. All of these historical sites were flooded as well, like Cossack burial grounds and old churches and archaeological sites. It was a disaster. The natural flow of the river Dnieper was disrupted, and they basically built like cascades of dams above our area, just completely transformed it. In 2022, the occupying Russians, they blew up the dam from within. There was no, it's been proven, you can't see any bombs falling or missiles falling from the top. The forces that were occupying, the Russian forces, had it mined underneath from day one. When they blew it up, the new Kakhovka, a town very, very much nearby that was built in the 1950s, was flooded. And look it up, it was a total disaster. There was like animals and people on roofs of buildings. Days later, you could see all of this debris, like whole roofs of houses floating into the Odessa port, like dogs and deer clinging to these kind of like rafts. It was a complete ecological disaster. Very rare animals died during this flood. It's really difficult to know just how much damage was done. And of course, another disastrous thing that happened was with this flood, all of these mines that have been put by the Russians have just washed off again into the sea, beached. Ukraine is the most mined country in the world now. Of course, it has a massive impact on the agricultural sector. All of these fields in Ukraine, in the south of Ukraine especially, are mined now. Pretty much the size of Germany, I believe, has been mined in Ukraine. And it doesn't just have immediate repercussions or repercussions for another 10 years. It has very long, extremely negative effects. This is the way, this is another genocide, ecocide, genocide. They're all kind of linked together. Destruction of people's community, actually a lot starts in nature, and Stalin knew that very well. So destroying natural habitats wouldn't just be good to create all of these fields where you can grow industrial crops. You're also kind of destroying people's communities as well. In the south, for example, come spring, you might go foraging, or you would plant some vegetables in the floodplains, or you would take your cow to pasture in these special meadows. If you know that your whole area is mined and you are at great risk of death, you're simply going to abandon that community. It's not sustainable. You can't live there anymore. So this is how the locals move out, and then strangers come in. It's just something that Russia has been doing for years and years and years, unfortunately. So I really hope that the Ukrainian government and also agencies, organizations from the outside will invest a lot into demining Ukraine. And I really hope that once the territories in the south of Ukraine are liberated, we make the correct decisions on what to do with the destroyed dam. I'm not an expert, but I just wonder if not rebuilding it would be actually quite a good idea. Apparently, there is a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. Apparently, the areas where the water of the reservoir in Kakhovka has receded, there's a young forest of these weeping willows that is coming through. So nature is actually, it's reviving itself. And from what it looks like, it's going back to how it was pre-building of the dam in the 1950s. So I hope that after victory, Ukrainians and anyone who wants to help Ukraine will keep the environment, nature, at the top of the priority list. as we rebuild our areas, our environment, the communities can also heal and return and keep living.